Before Rome, before Alexander, before even Greece had risen to glory, there was an empire so vast, so powerful, that it stretched from the lush valleys of the Indus to the shores of the Aegean Sea. An empire built not just by the sword, but by tolerance, vision, and unity. This was the Persian Empire, a civilization that forever changed the course of human history. But how did a small tribe from the Iranian plateau rise from obscurity to become one of the greatest superpowers the world has ever seen? In this video, we uncover the epic rise, fearless expansion, and lasting legacy of the Persian Empire, the empire that redefined what it meant to rule. Long before Persia became an empire, it was simply a name, Parsa, for a rugged land of herders and warriors, nestled in the highlands of what is now southern Iran. The people of this land, known as the Indo-Iranians, were a branch of a larger Aryan migration that swept into the Iranian plateau around 1000 BCE. They brought with them their language, their gods, and a fierce independent spirit. For centuries they lived in the shadow of their more powerful neighbors, like the Elamites, the Assyrians, and especially the Medes, who ruled the region. But everything changed with the rise of one man, Cyrus II of Anshan, known to the world as Cyrus the Great. In around 550 BCE, Cyrus led a bold rebellion against the Medes, defeating his grandfather and uniting the Persians and Medes into one powerful kingdom. It wasn't just conquest, it was transformation. Cyrus was forging not just a kingdom, but an empire. His rule would set a revolutionary tone. Instead of enslaving conquered people, Cyrus offered freedom. The Cyrus cylinder, inscribed in Babylonian cuneiform, is often called the world's first charter of human rights. With policies of tolerance and respect for local customs, Cyrus earned loyalty wherever he marched. Lydia, Babylon, Central Asia. Each became part of something bigger, something never before seen. The foundations of the Achaemenid Empire were laid, a legacy that would stretch across 3 continents and leave an imprint on the world that still endures. But Cyrus was just the beginning. What came next was the rapid expansion of an empire destined to touch the edges of the known world. With Cyrus the Great's brilliant unification of the Medes and Persians, the first spark of empire had ignited, but the flame would spread faster and farther than anyone could have imagined. Cyrus swept across the ancient world like a storm. In 547 BCE, he defeated Croesus, the wealthy king of Lydia, capturing Sardis and all of western Anatolia. Next came the mighty city of Babylon. In 539 BCE, he entered the city without a battle, welcomed by priests and people alike. Why such peace? Because Cyrus came not as a destroyer but as a liberator. He freed the enslaved Jews, allowing them to return to Jerusalem. He restored temples, respected traditions, and ruled with justice. In 530 BCE, Cyrus fell in battle on the eastern frontier. But his death did not end the dream. His son, Cambyses II, took the torch. In 525 BCE, Cambyses crossed into Egypt, defeated the pharaoh, and claimed the land of the Nile. Persia now stretched from the Aegean to the sands of Africa. Then came the man who would elevate Persia to its greatest heights, Darius the Great. A military genius, a reformer, and a visionary king. Under Darius, the empire reached its zenith. He reorganized it into provinces called satrapies, each ruled by a loyal governor. He built the legendary Royal Road, stretching over 2,500 kilometers, so messages could cross the empire in just days. A courier system so advanced even the Greeks were amazed. He created a unified currency, the Daric, standardized weights and measures, and introduced a legal code. And then came Persepolis, a city carved from stone, filled with monumental art and architecture. Not just a capital, but a symbol. A throne of empire, a place where the world's many cultures brought gifts to the King of Kings. By 500 BCE, the Persian Empire was the largest the world had ever seen, stretching from India to Europe, from Central Asia to Egypt. It united over 70 ethnic groups, 50 million people, and countless languages, all under the banner of one crown, but with great power comes greater resistance. On the western horizon, a small collection of city-states was preparing to challenge the mighty empire. The stage was set for one of the most legendary conflicts in ancient history. An empire can conquer, but to govern, to sustain, that takes genius. And the Persian Empire? It wasn't just the largest of its time, it was one of the best organized the world had ever seen. To manage over 50 million people across 3 continents, Darius the Great pioneered a bold strategy: divide the empire into satrapies, provinces, each overseen by a satrap or governor. Satraps had real power. They could collect taxes, maintain armies, and enforce laws, but they always answered to the king. To prevent rebellion, Darius introduced the king's eyes and ears, a royal network of spies and inspectors. No satrap could get too powerful without the king knowing. And then there was the royal road, the empire's heartbeat. Couriers on horseback could carry royal decrees across the empire in less than 10 days. A feat that wouldn't be matched again until the invention of the telegraph. But the true brilliance of Persian rule lay in its tolerance. Local customs, religions, and languages were preserved. From Babylonian astronomers to Egyptian priests and Phoenician sailors, the empire didn't erase cultures, it empowered them. Even the empire's religion, Zoroastrianism, promoted harmony through its core idea, a cosmic battle between truth and falsehood, where every soul had the power to choose. Darius standardized coinage, weights, and laws. Trade flourished. Taxes were fair. Justice was recorded in stone. At the heart of it all stood Persepolis, not just a royal palace, but a living symbol of unity. A place where diverse nations, each with their own dress, language, and customs, came to pay tribute, not in fear, but with respect. The Persian Empire wasn't held together by the sword alone, but by administration, respect, and an early vision of multicultural governance that echoes even today. But while the empire thrived within, a new storm brewed in the west. From across the Aegean Sea, a collection of warriors and philosophers would soon rise to challenge the might of Persia. By the 5th century BCE, the Persian Empire stood tall, mighty, sophisticated, unstoppable. But on the edges of its western frontier, trouble was brewing. It began with a spark, the Ionian Revolt. Greek cities in Asia Minor under Persian rule rose in rebellion with support from Athens. For the Persians, this wasn't just defiance, it was insult. Darius the Great, enraged, vowed revenge, and thus began one of the most legendary conflicts in history, the Greco-Persian Wars. In 490 BCE, the Persians landed at Marathon, near Athens. Outnumbered but fearless, the Greeks charged and stunned the world. The mighty Persian army was defeated, but the story was far from over. 10 years later, Xerxes I, the new king of kings, marched to finish what his father had started. He assembled the largest invasion force the ancient world had ever seen. They crossed from Asia into Europe, an ocean of warriors stretching from horizon to horizon. At Thermopylae, a few thousand Greeks, led by Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, held the pass against impossible odds. Though they fell, their courage became legend. Then came the Battle of Salamis. The Greeks lured the massive Persian navy into tight straits and destroyed it with speed and strategy. Xerxes retreated. The tide had turned. A few city-states, united in purpose, had shaken the greatest empire on earth. It wasn't the end of Persia nor of Greek struggle, but this clash wasn't just about land or power. It was a battle of civilizations, order versus freedom, empire versus city-states. And as Persia watched the West with caution, a new storm was already rising from Macedonia, a name that would shake empires: Alexander. Even the greatest empires eventually bend under their own weight, and the Persian Empire, vast, proud, and majestic, was no exception. After the glory days of Darius and Xerxes, a long line of weaker kings followed. Power struggles erupted in the court. Brothers killed brothers. Generals betrayed kings. Loyalty gave way to ambition. Rebellions flared across the empire. Satraps, once loyal governors, began ruling like independent kings. The system that once held millions together was now falling apart. Then came the final blow, from the west. A 20-year-old Macedonian prince named Alexander rose to power. Bold, brilliant, and relentless. At Issus, and later at Gaugamela, Alexander's army shattered Persian resistance. The once unstoppable Persian military was now disorganized and outmatched. Darius III, the last king of the Achaemenid dynasty, fled in desperation. He was betrayed, captured, and killed, not by the Greeks, but by his own people. In 330 BCE, Alexander marched into Persepolis, the jewel of the Persian Empire. He burned it to the ground, either in revenge or celebration. The flames marked the symbolic end of an era. The empire that once stretched from the Indus to the Aegean was no more. But the legacy of Persia endured. Its language, its culture, and its innovations lived on, influencing civilizations for centuries to come. The Persian Empire may have fallen, but its impact on the world remains eternal, a reminder of the heights humanity can achieve and the fragility of even the greatest empires. Empires fall, but some leave behind echoes so powerful they ripple through time itself. The Persian Empire may have crumbled under Alexander's sword, but its influence? It never truly died. The Persians were pioneers in governance. Under Darius the Great, the empire was divided into satrapies, provinces ruled by governors who answered to the king. This system inspired the Romans, the Ottomans, even modern federal states. They introduced standardized laws, a unified tax system, and centralized authority over one of the most diverse populations in history. Long before email or the internet, the Persian Empire connected its vast territories with the legendary Royal Road. Messages could travel 1,500 miles in just 7 days thanks to an early version of the postal service. The idea of fast, state-sponsored communication, that was Persian. Long before Christianity or Islam, the Persians followed Zoroastrianism, a faith centered around good versus evil, free will, and moral responsibility. Zoroastrian beliefs deeply influenced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Ideas like heaven, hell, angels, and the final judgment. The Persian kings ruled over dozens of cultures, but they didn't erase them. They allowed people to keep their languages, gods, and customs. It was tolerance, not terror, that held the empire together, a lesson modern leaders still struggle to learn. Persian architecture wasn't just buildings, it was a statement of power, harmony, and beauty. The columns of Persepolis, the gardens of Pasargadae, the palaces of Susa, they inspired Greek, Islamic, and Indian architecture for centuries. Even the word paradise comes from the Persian, meaning walled garden. Though the empire fell, Persian identity never vanished. It lived on through language, poetry, music, and pride. The works of poets like Ferdowsi revived Persian culture centuries later. His epic, The, kept the spirit of the empire alive. The Persian Empire is gone, but its legacy, it still beats in the heart of every civilization it touched, including ours. Still with us, history lovers? Get ready, because here are some mind-blowing facts about the Persian Empire. Did you know the Persians didn't just build palaces? They crafted paradise on earth, literally. Their royal gardens were called in Old Persian, meaning walled garden. Sound familiar? That word evolved into what we now call paradise. These gardens weren't just about beauty. They symbolized harmony between humans and nature, a sacred expression of royal power. But wait, there's more. Thousands of years later, Zoroastrianism hasn't vanished. In fact, fire temples still burn across parts of Iran and India. Some of these sacred flames have been burning continuously for over 1,000 years, a spiritual connection back to the Achaemenid kings themselves. Now, ancient energy. Here's another surprise. The Persian army wasn't just one people, it was people. Over 70 different ethnic groups marched under one flag, one empire. Picture this. Indian war elephants, Egyptian chariots, and Scythian archers all fighting side by side. The Persian military was like a living, breathing United Nations of ancient warfare. It was this diversity that gave them unmatched power across continents. They ruled the largest empire the world had ever seen, They mastered the art of administration, tolerance, and style. And in many ways, we're still living in their shadow. Mind-blowing, isn't it? The Persian Empire wasn't just an empire of the past, it's a legacy that continues to shape the world we live in today. Let's imagine a world that almost happened. In 480 BCE, the mighty armies of Persia, led by Xerxes I, stood at the gates of Greece. Thousands of warriors, countless ships, an empire that stretched from the Indus Valley to the Aegean Sea. But what if history flipped? What if Persia had won? Imagine if the Persians had crushed Athens, defeated Sparta, and absorbed the whole of Greece into their empire. No golden age of Athens, no Socrates, no Plato, no Aristotle, no spark of democracy as we know it today. Would the idea of citizen government have ever taken root? Would Western civilization look more like a blend of Persian monarchy and Eastern imperialism? No Renaissance, no Enlightenment, no American or French revolutions, but maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Remember, Persia wasn't just about conquest, it was about tolerance, infrastructure, and multi-ethnic unity. Could a Persian-dominated world have led to global stability, even centuries earlier? History is not just about what happened, but what almost did. In another reality, epic world history might be broadcasting in Old Persian, and democracy might be just a forgotten dream. What do you think? Would the world be better or worse if Persia had conquered all of Greece? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's rewrite history together. From humble beginnings in the rugged lands of Iran to a mighty empire stretching across 3 continents, the Persian Empire rose with vision, expanded with strategy, and ruled with a wisdom far ahead of its time. But Persia wasn't just an empire of the past, it was a blueprint for the future. What can we in the modern world learn from the empire that once united so many under one banner? Imagine a world where diversity is not feared, but embraced. Persia showed us that unity doesn't mean uniformity. They ruled over countless cultures, religions, and languages, not by erasing them, but by letting them thrive. Perhaps today's globalized world could take a page from their book on tolerance and inclusion. And their roads, the Royal Road, a network that connected the farthest reaches of their empire. It wasn't just about trade, but communication, collaboration, and progress. Could we build modern systems that connect us as seamlessly as Persia's roads once did? Their laws, their administration, their balance of power. Persia proved that governance isn't just about ruling, it's about serving. What if today's leaders ruled with the same vision for fairness and unity? Even in its fall, Persia carved a legacy so deep that echoes of its greatness still resonate. It reminds us that empires rise and fall, but ideas, bold, revolutionary ideas, are eternal. If this epic story fascinated you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more journeys through the past, where history isn't just facts, it's a story that changed the world. Next time on, we'll dive into the collapse of the ancient China civilization empire and the ripple effect that reshaped all of Europe.